Canon Ganesan says, questions on the ICC extending international status to all T20 matches. I understand it provides much needed recognition to matches involving tier ones like Scotland, Netherlands, blah, blah, blah. But you get single-digit scores or losses by huge market margins. I guess in other sports like football, basketball, or hockey, they have similar results. We should have. I'm not going to read all the way to your end. I think it's really interesting. The whole idea of diluting the quality for neutral viewers, though, is what you're sort of talking about there, Kanan. Look, neutral viewers aren't watching those games to begin with, so it doesn't matter. Those teams are playing more internationals now because they have an official status than they were before, but they were also already playing internationals. We just didn't let them call it that. It's a ridiculous situation. We have decided what an international fixture can be officially, and that's stupid and idiotic, and it should never have existed. What should have existed was a better structure to go. Okay, if Mozambique and Uganda want to play a test match against each other, they can call it a test match. They can play it a test match. Remember, in the old days, anyone called anything a test match. What should have happened then is that we had different tiers for test matches. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. You could have exactly the same for international T20s if you wanted to do it as well. When people, it's the famous one is always football. I suppose you could say football or basketball. Like, I think that the top basketball scorer of all time, Oscar, someone from Brazil, I always forget his last name. And the top football scorer is the guy from Iran, right? No one's saying that they're the best basketballer and the best footballer in the world. There's been a lot of hilarious basketball results. And, having seen Sri Lanka, who I think are currently ranked 205th in the world at football, they are still representing Sri Lanka at football. They should be allowed to call it an international game. They're not very good. I've never played football, and I felt like even I could have, got on the left back and not completely disgraced myself in that game. But realistically, I think at a certain point we have to allow people to play international games. This is why when people say stuff like that, this is why we don't have many big teams, because we said that you can only play when we say you're good enough. We don't know when teams are good enough. Sri Lanka were probably good enough for decades before we got them involved, and had they started playing in 1930, my guess is by 1996 they would have been a far better, more consistent team. It wouldn't have been a surprise that they won the World Cup by that point. It took New Zealand 39 years to win their first Test series, right? It took, South Africa won, 2 Test series in their first 40 years as well. If you only wait for teams to come in and then you grant them status, you're creating a gentleman's club. That's not what international sports should be. So, no, I think right across the board, Test, ODI, T20, if 2 international teams are playing, they should be able to call it an international game. Then we just have tiers and divisions and all sorts of normal things that top-end sports do. So if you're looking at the stats right now for this tournament, you don't have to look at the, Uganda versus, who would Uganda play? Denmark game, right? You don't need to look at that when you look at your stats. You can narrow it down to just teams from this World Cup. You can narrow it down to just teams from the first, from the top 10 qualified ranked teams. There are many different things that you can do. The whole stats thing, as someone who works at stats all the time, it's complete nonsense to think that these other teams are ruining the stats. They're just not. So I understand the point, but no, we should be encouraging more teams to play more international cricket. And if this does it, great.